Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I'm Manny Carl, and today's Let's Talk will cover information that I have scraped from the very bottom of the barrel of the internet in a few news articles that I have found. Now, I was going to go ahead and do the state of the game, but that is actually going to happen tonight, so I will have that for you tomorrow. Now, it is hard to take these as actual stories and factual evidence since no one has really said anything about the survival DLC except for this one website, so I don't know how they became so special, but we'll find out what that is. Now, I'll just quickly go over a few things prior to that, because I really quickly, really before getting into that website, I have something else that I want to kind of go over, because the first thing I want to discuss is an article written by my favorite article writer, Alvin Elfwine, because every single time he writes an article, my bullshit meter is off the charts. I am no longer even going to give out his site anymore, because I can say with 100% assurity that Alvin Elfwine is writing these without ever having played the Division. He is I don't even know. Alvin, if you see this, send me a message. I would love to have you on the Let's Talk so you can defend yourself and the terrible information you are passing around to the community. Now, Alvin Elfwine of BS Tech News comes to us with the headline, "New State of the Game is all about pleasing fans and catching up." Okay, Alvin, since you've obviously got the transcript early of the State of the Game, what are we looking at? Oh look, Alvin wants us all in on what the state of the game is. Let's listen.
In order to tackle issues and or determine what other things to do, the Division State of the Game was born. This is primarily an avenue for the devs to make their plans known to the public. It could either go from unleashing a new update or offering some sort of advice that would stand as fixes or to some bug issues.
That's some fine journalism there, Alvin. You get that all on your own? Pretty sure the state of the game was always there for the devs to tell us what was going on in the game. It was always planned. It was born when the game launched, and not out of necessity to discuss issues and what other things to do, as you so eloquently put it in your fine piece of journalistic integrity writing. So what else do you have for us, Alvin, that you could possibly shed some light as to what pleasing the fans and catching up means?
Well, according to Gaming Bull, the next Division State of the Game is slated for August 18th, exactly 2 days from now. The only catch, however, is that no issue is going to be discussed or addressed. This is due to the fact that community manager Hamish Bode took a vacation over the last few weeks, disallowing him to perhaps know what is going on. Nonetheless, he is said to host the upcoming event. Surely enough, the Division fans should not get their hopes high. Bode already iterated that the state of the game will be more about catching up, so for players expecting to get new revelations about the updates, they better not turn to the hype.
So this issue is all about pleasing the fans, Alvin. You think we're all pleased that nothing is going to be discussed and issues won't be addressed because someone went on vacation. So your headline is really only half true. Shouldn't it read, "Tomorrow's State of the Game is about catching up"? Maybe something less bullshitty, perhaps? Let me know if Alvin Elfwine is by far the worst video game news reporter on the internet, and these sites are really just promoting terrible information and basically just like recycled information. It's not even real information. I mean, the headline, it was just like, I can't even explain how this headline even got into the game. New State of the Game is about pleasing fans and catching up. Well, pleasing fans would mean that they have something to tell us, and catching up means that they're going to tell us what, is going on. So, and not to mention, it wasn't just Hamish that was on vacation. The whole studio was on vacation. So it's not that that Hamish didn't know what was going on. There was nothing going on because everybody was on vacation. There was a holiday. So it's ridiculous that this guy continually writes these stories. Alvin Elfwine, not a real name. I guarantee there's no way that that's a real name. I wouldn't even pick that name if somebody said, come up with a pen name and write articles under it. I wouldn't even pick that name. There are far better names, so let me, seriously, let me know in the comments section if Alvin is the worst reporter on the internet for the Division and should be stopped from writing any more articles for his trash website, which I'm fairly certain he is the only one running that thing. There are so many ads on it, I can't even imagine that it gets more than like 1 or 2 hits a day. Like, seriously, I had pop-ups. I haven't seen a pop-up since like the 1980s, and I saw a pop-up on his website. Like, it's that bad. So let's go ahead and move on to more pressing news from the world of the survival DLC, because I scour everywhere for information, and this just happens to come up in my search. Another fake video game news source called Ecumerical News, which I have no idea why anybody named their website that, because that sounds like the fakest news source ever. Seriously, that is the worst name ever decided to write the article about The Division. And their headline is just as good. Tom Clancy's The Division DLC release news. Underground, a not so appealing DLC, survival out next month. Now, this was written on the 17th, which if you're counting, I believe that is today. And if you're, somehow listening to this in the future, it was the 17th of August when this was released. So there is just a few things, and this article is written by someone with a bit more normal name named Wendy Lemerick, and she wants us to know about the survival DLC because that's what gets people to go to the website. It doesn't matter if it's real information because they can just make it up. There's no journalistic integrity. There's no fallover. There's nobody really looking at this information and going, well, that seems real. You better go throw that up there. No, this could all be fake. I have no idea. But it would appear that Wendy has an insider track over at Ubisoft and spills the top secret classified information on the survival DLC. Of course, her credibility is shot when her first line of the article is, Ubisoft has just released the first DLC for Tom Clancy's The Division titled Underground. Come on, Wendy. It's been out for almost 2 months on Xbox and almost 3 weeks for PS4, so just released is a bit of an understatement. Of course, she is citing well-known and reputable site BitBag in this article, so she must be a true journalist with the utmost of integrity. Now, for the survival DLC information you have been waiting for that Wendy has been keeping to herself until this date, that she can unleash it for the rest of it. Let's go ahead, and I don't really have a voice for Wendy because she has a very girlish voice, so I'm just going to read it normally because that's just the way it is. So I'll read it in my Ubisoft voice. In the upcoming expansion, strategic Homeland Division agents will find themselves caught up in the harsh winter season in Manhattan while facing a depletion of supplies. The mission is to survive for as long as they can while being in a hostile environment. The Division Survival DLC will make the weather the main adversary of the players. In critical situations such as living in an unfavorable environment, people can be forced to act harshly as well. Besides the challenging weather, players will also need to deal with the lack of supplies. Well, it is good to know that Massive is adding weather as the new enemy. I can't wait to fight the weather and the lack of supplies. I honestly don't know where this information is obtained from, but journalistic integrity on these sites seems to cross over some sort of moralistic boundary. Maybe Alvin and Wendy are the same person. At least one article I read on mobileapps.com, a website that seems perfect for reporting on console games, writes their headline, Tom Clancy's The Division review, is the game already dead? Future not so bright due to issues. Story. I kid you not, that is the actual headline. I'm not even going to go into the article because it sounds like they just watched one of my videos and paraphrased it. The guy who wrote it, his name was C. DeLacy. Is that, like, that sounds like a bad pun name or something like that. C. DeLacy? Hey guys, why don't you come over and see my girl's Lacy's? What up? Like, I don't even understand who is writing these articles. It's got to be one person because they're all written in the same terrible, like, there's like 5 paragraphs. It seems to be like they're just churning these out from some sort of mill or something like that. And, I put up here that there was some actual survival DLC information, and it's very well that could be, but really what I'm bringing you here to do is really give you my vision for where the survival DLC needs to go. And it's kind of like, I want the survival DLC to be like this. And sure, when we first had a look back in 2013 or 2014 at E3, when this game was some sort of launch title, when there were lots of fairy dust running around in it, the game looked great, there was some sort of multiplayer happening in the main area of the mission, there were drones flying overhead that we could control with our mobile applications, and there were promises, oh so many promises being made, and we ended up getting none of it. So it's really like the survival DLC. I do remember watching back in the original E3 video and remembering there were bottles of water, and you had to drink water and you had to eat food to survive. And I'm wondering if the survival DLC will implement this kind of survivalistic portion that they took out of the game originally, and they're going to put it back now in this survival DLC. So I'm wondering if that's what's going on. Is that something that's going on? Because we have water, we have cans of beans and stuff like that already in the game, but are they going to make that change? That is really the thing. There's not a whole lot of information out there on the survival DLC, except for like the cool guy at the very end who looks like he stepped out of Army of Two and they just kind of copied him over. But nobody trademarked that look, so you could go ahead and just take it as you will, and that's really what it is. But the survival DLC really needs to just be, it sounds like, it really sounds like it is a DLC for the solo player. Or it could be a DLC for groups to go ahead and roam around different parts of Manhattan where there's no lighting, there's no, there's a lot of enemies, and it sounds like they're just bringing back really a more of a solo feel to it. Like I really can't even wrap my head around it, because when we look at the trailer, when we went back and looked at the trailer, the guy was going into an electronics store that looked like every other electronic, what was it, like Buy and Low Electronics or something like that. It looked like the same electronic stores everywhere else, and everything in it looked like the same stuff. And granted, this is still like, we're still right before Christmas in this episode, because when they go ahead and they show it, there's not too many days have really passed, because that, Fei Lao would probably get her bandages off and stuff like that. But this is kind of, it's funny to see this, because Paul Rhodes built the underground in like one day, according to what the time that has passed in the game. Like, nobody knows really how much time has passed in the game, but from my understanding, there's not a whole lot. It's maybe a few days or something like that, because Christmas still hasn't come. I mean, they still have the Christmas decorations up. They're still like planning for Christmas. There's people still talking about it. There's people still putting decorations up in the boo and stuff like that. So we all know that it's still before Christmas, so it's still some time between Black Friday and Christmas. And it actually, even Black Friday has been long gone for a couple weeks, so it's got to be like right before Christmas. But only a day has passed, and we got all this stuff, and we've cleaned out everything there is to clean out in New York City, because we've gone through that, and there's just no time that's passed. It's kind of weird. They really need to move this forward in the next DLC and move the survival DLC forward. Maybe make Fei Lao a little less grotesque with her injuries, and maybe, Paul Rhodes seems to disappear into the underground and not coming back up to talk about the things that you guys have to do and he has to do and stuff like that. But what I want the survival DLC to be is really a solo player experience where you're out there surviving, but there's also other players. And what would be cool is having a survival DLC that is like if they're moving away from the dark zone, they're going to create this area for us, and it is going to be a PvE dark zone, if you will, but not really the dark zone. It's going to be more of the survival zone, and you have to survive in it, and you have to drink water, you have to eat beans, and I don't know how it would really affect the rest of the game if they actually added that in, because that would be kind of weird to go ahead and change things how it already is. Not that they haven't done that at every patch. And I was talking with someone today. Let me just end it on here. And I was just talking with someone today about this over on the Reddit forums. Go over the Reddit forums. It's great. You can get your daily dose of salt. And we were just kind of talking about how there's so much inconsistency in the game, and how the heroic missions have been taken away from us. There's no reason to run a lot of the stuff. They've taken away a lot of the stuff. I was going through and talking about how in 1.0, and I know I mentioned this in a previous video, but we were talking about how in 1.0 we were mostly doing like a lot of crafting, we were doing missions, and we were doing Dark Zone to get gear. And then 1.1 introduced incursions, and we were doing glitches and stuff like that to get gear, because nobody was actually running the actual incursion, maybe a few handfuls of people who actually ran it legitly. But you were still getting 240 gear for running it on challenging mode, but for the most part people would rather just glitch because it was a lot easier, it was a lot faster, and they really just kind of streamlined that into the exploits. And then in 1.2 they introduced Clear Sky, And with Clear Sky, they actually made it so that a lot of the stuff was valid again. Like, you could run Clear Sky, you really didn't need glitches. They were giving out, HVTs, they were giving out free loot, they were giving out this and that, and there was a lot of stuff that they were doing to kind of appease fans of the game, and there was no reason to glitch. Like, I feel like 1.2 was the peak of where this game really just got to and then fell short. And then 1.3 came out and everything went back into the crapper. They introduced the underground and they ruined the dark zone and did all that stuff. Not that they weren't already on the way to ruining the dark zone, but they added in these new gear sets and ruined the dark zone for the most part. But anyways, that is really, what we were talking about, is how they have changed the way you get gear every single time. Because when people find a quick way to get gear, Ubisoft and Massive get together and decide that, well, you're getting gear too fast, so we need to change how you're getting gear. Honestly, just bring back the way it was in the very beginning, where different things had different gear attached to it. I would run one time in everything to go ahead. Make it so you go to the underground, you get a chest piece for all the gear. All the gear can, chest piece drops. Make it so that you run the Russian consulate and, the knee pads drop for different gear sets. Add the gear set, like, make it so that we are encouraged to do these events. Like, don't do it for the incursion. Nobody wants to do Falcon's Lost, please. Make it so that you have to go into the dark zone to get a piece of gear. Make it, so that when you don't have to just run the same thing over and over again to get gear. You will know, like, you can go through the same thing over and over again until you get that piece of gear that you're looking for and then move on to the next thing. That's the way it was in like 1.1 and 1.2, is that the gear was spread out. There was no way to get all of the gear in one place. So that's really what I'm trying to say. I mean, sure, there was. You could go do Falcon's Lost, but you really couldn't get the Sentry's gear or stuff like that from anywhere else but the Dark Zone too. And honestly, the Dark Zone needs to have its own gear attached to it so that you're not able to get every single piece of gear from the Dark Zone. So if people want to run the Dark Zone, they can run the Dark Zone, but they're not going to get any gear. You want them to go and use all of the events and stuff in the game, and you guys have taken those away from us. The fun parts of the game you guys have taken and ruined, because we no longer need to run missions or challenge missions or heroic missions anymore, because they don't yield any rewards that we really need. A 240 for running a heroic mission. It's ridiculous. We should be getting level 35s in these heroic missions, and we should be getting 268 armor pieces, 268 weapon, or 229 weapons, or whatever it is. So anyways, that has been my time. I just wanted to go ahead and say that. I hope you found this at least enjoyable. We'll go ahead and talk about the state of the game tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing what Hamish and crew are going to just go ahead and unleash during this. I doubt it's going to be very pleasing for the fans, but it will be nice to catch up to them, and I'm looking really forward to the state of the game. It's been a while since they've come out with one, so if you like this video, go ahead and drop a like on it, if anything, for the stupidity of Alvin Elfwine. Seriously, this guy needs to get off the internet. Like, with his fake name and his fake articles and everything like that, he's just spreading fallacy across the internet of the next state of the game is going to be pleasing to players. Like, they're not going to be pleasing players in the next state of the game. They're going to catch up, and they're going to give us a kind of, where they're going with the stuff and all that stuff. But anyways, consider subscribing to our channel. We do this every night almost, and we try to bring you the most up-to-date information to the game and to the Division as possible. And sure, we're playing a few other games, and so we're going to be transitioning and doing more games and more other stuff, but we want to really still focus on the Division as our main topic. So go ahead, subscribe to us, you'll get all the updated information, and we'll see you again in the underground. Aging out.